Welcome to today's oil painting tutorial. Today we'll be painting a colourful rice barge in the backwaters of Kerala in India. I'll go through the painting step by step, and some parts of the painting will be time-lapse when you know the method to use. The colours that we'll be using from top left to right are titanium white, lemon yellow, yellow ochre, cadmium red, crimson alizarin, permanent mauve, ceruleum blue, French ultramarine, and primary cyan. I'm also using some liquin to speed up the drying time, but this won't be necessary if you're painting. You can use something like linseed oil, although you might need to leave the painting to dry in between. We'll start the painting using a small filbert brush with a rounded tip, and this will be for the sky. I'll use a palette knife to mix the colours. So now I'm taking a small amount of titanium white and some primary cyan, and I'm mixing the two together. I've drawn a faint outline of the rice barge. If this is something you want to do, you can do it before you start painting. Otherwise, you can copy what I'm doing as we go along. Adding some more white. Now I'm giving it a good mix. Starting at the top left hand corner, I'm using the filbert brush and doing small sideways strokes. I'm picking up some of the darker blue paint and the whiter paint, and using them side by side, I can create variations between light and dark in the sky. This will help to make it look more natural. Using this technique, I'm going to work my way across the canvas, going down about a third. I'm shaping the top of the rice barge by painting in the sky that wraps around the roof. the left of the rice barge, I'm bringing the sky down a little to meet the tops of the trees. A few white clouds. I'm touching the sky very lightly with a bit of white on the end of the brush and a few diagonal strokes. Now for some of the rice barge colours. I'm mixing yellow ochre, some crimson alizarin, now some lemon yellow mixed with cadmium red. This makes a vibrant orange colour. A touch of crimson mixed in on the side of the orange. Adding a tiny bit of yellow ochre. Some more lemon yellow and cadmium red to create a separate amount of orange. I'm putting down 2 small amounts of white and I'm adding some of the first colour mix to the white. Now I'm mixing some of the second colour with the white. A mix of the orange and white. This has given me a range of different warm tones to use for the top of the barge. I'm using the smallest round brush and I'm taking some of the darkest colour and I'm painting the sections between each window on the barge. These look like orange columns. The colour lightens nearer the top, so I'm using the lighter orange mix as we move upwards. You can see that the line of the barge is not horizontal, it's at a slight angle or slope to reflect a vanishing point in the distance. The tops of each window are arched, and this is reflected in the shape that I am making now. Some more of the vibrant orange at the top. Some yellow ochre, only small amounts at one time, mixed with some lemon yellow. This mix will fill in at the top of the boat or the barge. Some extra orange and white, the light mix on the right hand side of the palette. Shaping the top of the first window, allowing for the canopy that overhangs and creates some shade, which we'll add later. It's brighter where it catches more light. Now reaching into the corner at the top left, working on the slope of the roof higher on the left at the apex. Carefully stroking the edge to make a smooth line. Now I'm switching to the angle brush. This has a fine point and is good for detail or reaching the corners. I'm doing this using the tip of the brush to add a darker line for the edge of the window. You might wish to pause the video from time to time if you're painting along too. Here we're mixing orange with a dab of the yellows. This is emphasizing the space between the windows using darker tones. Shaping the second window, and lighter colour to the top to lift the colour that's already there. Moving this colour around the tops of the windows to define the shape. Now we can use the softness of this brush to blend the lighter and the darker colours where they meet. I'm painting the outline to the left of the entrance. Now filling in the top of the barge. Mixing lemon yellow and white. This is the lightest part. It's the top of the canopy for the windows. The shape of the canopy is wider at the top and narrows towards the base. I'm repeating this shape for each window. Some orange to create the inside edge on the right hand side. The top inside edge is the darkest, gradually becoming lighter further down. This is achieved by adding darker colour around the inside edge of the curve and blending it carefully with the lighter orange. We're taking some permanent mauve and some of the mid-orange mix and using this colour for the inside of the windows to create the basic shape. Adding a bit more of the darkest tones, adding mauve and a touch of primary cyan. Now adding crimson and mauve. And a bit of French ultramarine to darken the colour further. The edge of the dark colour is less curved on the left, with a large curve on the right. Adding some more ultramarine, using a small round brush for the detail. A darker line to separate the top section of the roof. So this is using a mix of mauve, crimson and ultramarine to make a triangle in the top of the roof at the front. I think this might be a vent. A small amount is visible on the far side, with the longer edge of the triangle on this side, the visible part. Similar detail along the top edge, getting smaller as we move along. Now lightening above the windows. Here we're using the dark mix with additional mauve to make the barge entrance, the large opening that you can see on the left. I'm using a chisel tool sideways on to follow the contour of the entrance. I'm making some window shapes that can be seen from inside the barge. These are on the opposite side. They will be lighter because they offer a view through to the scenery with the light coming inwards. A bit of crimson to make a redder tone. Now I'm adding hints of the drapes or the curtains that hang inside and those around the windows. Using mauve added to the dark mix, I'm using the small round brush to create the shape of the barge below. Now adding some light colour on the left for highlights. Adding some more crimson and mixing it in using a small, firm, round bristle brush. a dark line near the top and darker areas at the base. This leaves the middle with slightly lighter colour, indicating the curve of the boat. I've only left a thin area painted along to the right because below the boat will be the greenery of the riverbank. A bit of shaping on the left using the smallest filbert brush. I'll start mixing some green for the background colour on the far side of the water, using a mix of lemon yellow and a pale orange, some cerulean blue and ultramarine. A few downward strokes using this colour mix, indicating greenery on the bank. I'll add some blue for the darker mix for the base of the trees. Using a larger filbert brush again to spread greater quantities of paint. Some of the paint to the right of the rice barge, the colour laid down is a rough background colour that will be used for further painting and some detail. And now filling in the view from inside through the windows on the far side. This will be mostly green because of the trees, with a small amount at the bottom for the riverbank. Here I can use a small filbert brush to reach into the corners. Using cerulean blue, lemon yellow and the existing green mix for the bank in the foreground. I'm covering a large area and this bit isn't detailed. I'm using the large filbert brush, which is ideal for this. Mixing in some yellows and orange, and adding some different shades of green and even some white mixed in. I've shaped the bottom of the bank where it meets the water. For the sandy bank in the distance, I'm using white mixed with the light orange. I'll use some of the darker orange mix for the shadow, and this is where the trees overhang away from the water. The same technique will be used for the foreground. The darker colour spreads easily when it is mixed with the existing light orange and white. I can blend it using the flat brush. Using some cerulean blue and the light orange mix, I can create some strokes in the water. The water will be mostly greens, blues, yellow and white. This is to reflect the nature that flanks the water and also some of the life within it. I'll continue making small strokes. The edge of the water will be darker to show the reflection of the trees. The primary cyan makes a pretty dark blue-green colour. There is a darker area beneath the bow of the boat, and a touch of crimson for the reflection of the boat colour. I'll continue making small strokes and blending as I go. Some darker green closer to the water's edge in the foreground. Some additional colour for the boat's reflection. Working on the far side again, I'm using French Ultramarine to darken the base of the trees. Also filling in the windows inside to match the view. I'm adding some more of the sandy shoreline and extending it a little. Now for the first of 2 palm trees in the foreground. I'll start about here. This one is quite large and it reaches into the sky and has a curved trunk. This line is faint and it's marking the tree's position before I add more colour. To make the colour for the tree trunk, firstly I'm using the dark orange mix and carefully stroking down in the direction of the line that I created earlier. Now using the paint on my brush, I'm making a second tree on the right, a bit smaller than the first one. Before I forget, I'm using a filbert brush to add some white to the water's edge to create some movement and a few waves. To make the fronds of the palm tree, I'm taking some green and using this filbert brush which has slightly splayed bristles, and I'm making curved sweeping strokes. It's tricky to see it at first. As I add the yellow ochre, you can see the strokes more easily. I'm continuing in this fashion until all the branches have been painted. For the detail on the trunk, I'm making a shaded side and a lighter side. For the shadow, I'm using the orange mix, some green and the red or crimson, which makes brown. I'll stroke in a curved motion from left to right for the dark side of the trunk and from right to left for the light side of the trunk. Now adding some extra cyan and crimson. The trunk has a lot of texture, and so I'll make small separate brush strokes rather than blending it all in. Using the chisel tool to add white and to make some marks. The small filbert brush. This can be used to add lines, and it can be used to add dabs of light colour for the highlights. I'm leaving darker patches in between. Some lighter highlights on the branches. Using another small filbert brush, I'm making the appearance of palm trees in the distance, using dark colours against the lighter background and lighter tones against the ultramarine base. A small palm tree or two to the right hand side of the barge. They're on the far side. Now for the foreground. This will be a mass of different leaves and some colour for the flowers. I'll use small dabs, creating an angle at the end, a bit like a teardrop, and this is for the leaves. I'll be using a mix of different greens and yellows, and they will go all the way to the water's edge and alongside the barge. They will also cover the base of the palm trees. And that's it, the final painting. I hope that you've enjoyed this tutorial and will join me next time.